Brian Ashby spent his whole life performing for a crowd that never bought a ticket. He did not know that yet. At 22, he learned the one skill he would polish for the rest of his days. He learned to read a room before he read himself. Every choice ran through a single question first. What will they think? He chose the safe degree because the bold one looked foolish to people he could not name. He chose the respectable job because the title sounded good, said out loud at a party. He laughed at jokes he did not find funny. He nodded at opinions he did not hold. And he called this being well-liked. Brian was, in fact, well-liked. That was the trap. The applause came often enough to keep him on the stage. A compliment on the new car, a nod at the corner office. A room that turned when he walked in, for exactly the length of a handshake. He mistook the turning of heads for the holding of attention. He never noticed how fast the heads turned back. Here is what nobody tells you about an audience. It does not stay seated. It claps once and checks its phone. Brian bought the house in the neighborhood that impressed the people from his old neighborhood. He filled it with the furniture a magazine told him said success. He hosted the dinners and watched the faces for approval like a man reading a verdict. When a guest praised the wine, Brian felt the floor go solid beneath him. When a guest seemed bored, he lay awake rebuilding the evening line by line. His wife asked him once why he cared so much what near strangers thought. Brian said that reputation was everything. He believed it the way a drowning man believes in the rope. But here is the part that stings. The strangers were not thinking about Brian at all. They drove home talking about their own lives. They forgot the wine by the next traffic light. The dinner he agonized over for a week was gone from their minds before dessert settled. Brian was performing a show that the audience had already left. He just kept facing the seats. He shaped his opinions to match the table he sat at. He softened his real ones until he could no longer find them. He turned down the trip he wanted because it would look strange. He stayed in the job he hated because quitting would look like failure to men whose names he would forget. Every fence around his life was built to keep out a judgment that was never coming. And the years went by the way years do for a man who was busy being seen. Then it got worse. Brian climbed, and the higher he climbed, the louder the silence underneath the applause. He won the award and felt the thrill last exactly one evening. By morning, he needed a new room to walk into. The hunger that approval feeds is a hunger that approval cannot fill. Each clap bought him one day of quiet, then sent the bill. He began to measure his worth in a currency only other people could print. And other people, it turned out, were not minting it for him. They were busy. They were tired. They had their own empty seats to perform for. Marcus Aurelius wrote it down 2,000 years ago, and he wrote it for men exactly like Brian. He wrote, "How much time he gains who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. The applause you chase is owed to you by no one, and it is remembered by no one." Brian had spent a lifetime looking to see what the neighbor said, and the neighbor all along was looking somewhere else. There was a man Brian half noticed across those years, a quiet man named Cole, who never seemed to be performing anything. Cole took the strange trip. Cole kept the unfashionable opinion and said it plainly. Cole left the good job when it stopped being his. People talked about Cole for a week, the way people do, and then they forgot, the way people do. The difference was that Cole had not been waiting for them to remember. Cole had simply lived, while Brian had simply been watched, and one of them had something to show for it. Brian was 68 when he understood the shape of his own life. He was at a reunion, scanning the room out of old habit, performing the easy laugh, and he realized he could not remember a single choice he had made for himself. Not the house, not the job, not the opinions, not the laugh. He had auditioned for every part and starred in none of them. He looked around the room at the faces he had spent his life pleasing. Half of them did not remember his name. The other half remembered it and did not care. The audience he had performed for his whole life had forgotten him by lunch. The seats had been empty for decades. He had just kept bowing to them anyway. Here is the cruelty of it. Brian was not unloved. He was simply never himself long enough for anyone to love the real thing. He had given them a performance, and performances are not missed. Only people are missed, and Brian had spent so long being seen that he had forgotten how to be known. Now read this slowly, because it is about you. You have an audience too. You have shaped a choice this week around a face that will never think of you again. You have edited a sentence, swallowed an opinion, skipped a want, to please a crowd that forgot you by lunch. The seats you are performing for are emptier than you think. The people whose judgment runs your life are not watching the show. They are starring in their own. So stop performing. Make the choice no one will applaud. Say the true thing and let the room turn back to its phone. Take the trip that looks strange and live a single day for yourself. Because the applause was never coming. And the only person still in the audience, at the very end, is you. This is Schopenhauer's truth.